Hello Nidorinas and Nidorinos, I'm KingNido, and today it is the Holon Allies going up against the Melemele Rumbles, and it was last season these two sides were trying to avoid that wooden crown position, with the Allies being unsuccessful for the second season in a row, but they have started this season off much better, taking down the reigning champions in their first game, and they want to continue that by taking down a former champions in the form of the Melemele Rumbles, who are trying to return to that past glory. But with all that said, let us know in the comments below who you think's going to win this matchup. Will it be the rainbow decks? Will it be the fighting decks? Let's go.
3, 2, 1, go!
And starting off this match for the Allies, it is their Fossil Divers deck, as they're always guaranteed the Dunsparce in their opening hand, so that goes into the active spot. It is going to be that Tyrog with the fantastically named Slappy Knuckle being moved into the active spot for this crowded cavern deck with the Binacle on the bench. But here we go, our game one in this 3-game series as the Allies. They do pull the Dome Fossil. Now they've already got an Omanite and an Omastar in hand, but they've got the Kabutops who pairs with the Dome Fossil, having that rare candy so they can skip over the Kabuto, as it does come across to the Rumbles who pull their Lyra. They play the Professor's Research though to get the Diglett. They've already got the Dugtrio in hand, and they get the Rocky Helmet that they are going to attach to the Tyrog here. They want to discourage the Allies from going on the offensive. Diglett going onto the bench. They've also got an X speed, but Tyrog has a 0 energy retreat cost. They get the first energy onto the Binacle, as it does require 2, and with that Slappy Knuckle the weakness comes into play, so it's 40 damage onto the Dunsparce, the second Dome Fossil being pulled for the Holon Allies here. Now this deck does generate water and fighting type energy. Starting off with a water energy first being generated, we can see that it will be a fighting energy on their next turn. But already they are going to go with the rare candy, it looks like, to get that Kabutops online. Now the Kabutops only requires a single energy for that leech life, capable of 50 damage, but it also restores the equal health to the amount of damage it does. And they're still going to attach an energy to the Kabutops. They're not concerned with it attaching an energy to the Dunsparce. A very interesting decision here by the Allies, unless they want to potentially have a retreat free to go. But it is the Relicanth being pulled for the Rumbles, as they do get the Dugtrio online. The Dugtrio with that Cliff Crumbler only requires a single energy that is attached, and when they do play that, it causes the top card of their own deck to be discarded. But if it's a fighting type, it does an extra 60 damage, so it is capable of doing 100 damage, as it is Dunsparce being cleared off the board by the Tyrog as the Rumbles take the first battle point, as we do see Kabutops being moved into the active spot, and it is the Kabuto being pulled for the Holon Allies, as they're continuing to generate these fighting energy now. And with this Leech Life, Tyrog is an extremely easy target, immediately getting a battle point of their own. Now it is the first to 3 battle points, but for every game you win you do receive 2 victory points, which makes that third game as crucial as the first and second one, with every battle point and every bit of damage being counted towards our leaderboard, as we do see the Dugtrio moved into the active spot, and Barbaracle has been pulled, who does require 3 energy. Dugtrio's already got all the energy it requires for this Cliff Crumbler. Again, it is capable of 100 damage. Kabutops has 120 remaining, but it is a potion at the top of the Rumbles deck, so it only does 40 damage, putting Kabutops into discard range. But keeping in mind that Leech Life does restore the health of Kabutops, Kabuto receiving the single required energy needed as the Leech Life continues, and Dugtrio is brought down to 40 health, that 50 health being restored for Kabutops. They needed to have that fighting type Pokemon at the top of their deck, as they do pull the Dugtrio. It is going to be a third energy onto Barbaracle here, and they think of playing the X speed. Now Dugtrio does have a single energy retreat cost, and they're willing to give up that single energy, so they are wanting to save that X speed, as the Dynamic Chop 70 damage guaranteed onto Kabutops here, bringing it down to 60 health. Barbaracle can outlast a hit here from Kabutops, as the Will is pulled for the Holon Allies, a second energy, this time the water energy, onto the Kabuto. And they are going to continue with these Leech Lives, offsetting 50 of that 70 damage from the Dynamic Chop, bringing Kabutops back up to 110 health. It's not even in discard range of the Dugtrio, as the second Binacle is pulled for the Rumbles, which means it would have been the card getting discarded on the previous turn if they'd gone for the Cliff Crumbler. And we said that Slappy Knuckle was a fantastic name, so is the Cliff Crumbler now that we think about it, as the Relicanth receives its first energy, another Dynamic Chop from the Barbaracle, knowing that it can outlast another hit from the Kabutops, as the second Kabuto is pulled for the allies, and it does receive another fighting type energy, and it is continuing with these leech lives that will keep it out of discard range from a dynamic chop, but it doesn't keep it out of a max effort Cliff Crumbler. As the Pokemon communication is pulled for the Rumbles, they can send a Pokemon that's in their hand back into their deck and get one out in return, and that is exactly what they're going to do here. And they are going with the Binacle, so we imagine that they want the Diglett in return, and it is going to be the Barbaracle. That is definitely not what they wanted, having put the Binacle back. They need to think about how they want to approach this. If they go for the Cliff Crumbler, they could potentially get Kabutops discarded, as they go with the Lyra as well. This allows them to retreat the active Pokemon if they have damage on them for free. They're going with the Cliff Crumbler, and it is going to be the second Relicanth being discarded. This allows 100 damage onto the Kabutops, and the Rumbles take their second point. A fantastic play there to go with the Cliff Crumbler, but it is going to be the Shell Attack of Kabuto being moved into the active spot as they pull their second Kabutops, and the Rumbles at the moment cannot outrun these Kabutops, as again this second one getting its third energy, and the Leech Lives are going to continue. 50 damage, wiping the Dugtrio off the board. The next point will take game 1. And that Kabutops appeared at the perfect time for the allies. The Relicanth being moved into the active spot, still requiring one more energy. The Rescue Scarf has been pulled for the Rumbles. I'm not sure they're going to be too concerned with their Rescue Scarf, because if another Pokemon is discarded from energy, regardless of it going back into their hand, they will lose the game. There is the takedown, 50 damage onto the Kabutops, 10 damage back onto the Relicanth, as the Helix Fossil Praise Helix is pulled for the Holon Allies, and they are going to put that onto the bench. They've already got the Omanyte and the Omastar in hand, but it is going to be the first energy onto the Helix Fossil, and the Leech Lives are continuing, immediately offsetting the damage from the Relicanth, also bringing the Relicanth down into 30 health. It is down in discard range, but the Hiker has been pulled for the Rumbles. They can use this for each fighting Pokemon they have in play. They get to look at that many cards at the top of their own deck and put them in any order they want, but unfortunately both cards they have in play at the moment are in discard range. It is a Diglett and Binacle that they have left. They are going for the Diglett first, the Binacle next. They could only look at the 2 cards because there are only 2 fighting type cards in play. And they are thinking about how they want to approach this. They get a 4th energy on to the Barbaracle, and they are going to retreat the Relicanth. I think they're just trying to maximize their damage here, because this Dynamic Chop will do 70 damage. As we said, every ounce of damage does count towards our leaderboard, but this is fantastic for the allies, as the Kabutops have run wild here, and this Fossil Divers deck is free to take the win over the Crowded Cavern deck, as this final Leech Life wipes Barbaracle off the board, and the Holon Allies do take game 1. But as we have our first table reset, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, please leave a like and subscribe so don't miss out on any of the action in the PokeType League TCG. And going into game 2, it will be the allies going first. This time they're playing their Dark Light deck that does produce Darkness and Psychic type energy. They've got the Larvitar line already in hand, plus the Umbreon and the Espeon Larvitar going into the active spot. For the Rumbles, they're playing their Cliff Cave deck, and again, they've got the Tyrogue in hand, as they are permitted 1 baby Pokemon per deck, even if they're the same this season. So it is Tyrogue in the active spot. We see the Dwebble and the Sudowoodo on the bench, but here we go with our game 2. And it is the Rescue Scarf being pulled for the Holon Allies. Now, if this is attached to a Pokemon and they do get discarded, permitting the team doesn't lose the game, that Pokemon will go back into their hand, which is a fantastic way to get another basic Pokemon into your hand. As the Gligar is pulled for the Rumbles, they get a first energy onto the Dwebble, and they are continuing with these Slappy Knuckles, 20 damage down onto the Larvitar. Now, the Larvitar and the Pupitar, they don't require any specific colored energy, but the Tyranitar requires at least 3 Darkness energy, and we can see the Darkness energies are being generated at the moment as the Lyra has been pulled for the allies. So it's 3 Darkness energy for the Tyranitar, plus a 4th energy has to go on it. Now, they're trying to decide whether or not they want to move that Pupitar into play. But no, they're going with the Tackle, so they get that 10 damage onto the Tyrogue. Tyrogue having 30 health, that comes back over to the Rumbles, who pull their second Gligar. Thinking about how they want to approach this. They are going to get a second energy onto the Dwebble. Now, if they'd been setting up the Sudowoodo, they could have actually retreated the Tyrogue if they wanted to and gone for the win with the Sudowoodo. But they wanted to prepare here, it seems, for the Crustle, who's now online. 20 more damage onto the Larvitar. And it is going to be the Traveling Merchant pulled for the Allies here. As we can see on their next turn, it will be a Psychic type energy, which is not what the Tyranitar needs. They are looking at their top 4 cards, no Pokemon tools, so their deck is reshuffled. And it is the Pupitar coming onto play. The Guard Press does do 20 damage, Tyrogue only having 20 health, but it also reduces the damage that Pupitar takes in the following turn by 30, which could be crucial here to try and keep it in this matchup. Keeping in mind that the Crustle is absolutely capable of wiping it clean off the board, and they still don't have a second basic Pokemon as the Rumbles, thinking about who they want to move into the active spot, and they do go with that Stone Edge Crustle. Again, just 100 damage that it can do straight away, but it still needs 1 more energy after it did receive its third. If they do flip a heads, it does an additional 50, so 150 damage if they get that coin flip. They do attach the Memory Light though to the Crustle, bringing Gligar online as well. That Sand Spray, 30 damage, so it won't actually be enough to do anything to the Pupitar, but they may be wanting to save that. I don't know why though, as they will be able to get that Stone Edge guaranteed damage in the next turn. And the Allies thinking about how they want to approach this. We did touch on that Rescue Scarf earlier, and sides need to not underplay that card. It could be crucial throughout their season. We have seen sides make the mistake of not playing that Rescue Scarf early enough already this season. Tyranitar's online, and they are going to attach that Rescue Scarf here. As we can see, there are 2 Psychic Energy being generated for the Allies in their coming turns, and they still need a 3rd Psychic Energy for that Buster Tail from the Tyranitar here. They are going to end their turn now. Tyranitar is in discard range for this Crustle, but they have to flip the heads, as it is the Professor's Research being played to get the Gliscor and the Pokemon Communication for the Rumbles. Gliscor is going to immediately come online. That Sharp Fang, 60 damage, 2 energy, but it's the 4th energy being attached to Crustle. They can go for the Stone Edge, 100 energy guaranteed. They want the head flip though. They want to get rid of this Tyranitar as quickly as possible, and that is exactly what is going to happen with this Stone Edge. 150 damage, wiping Tyranitar off the board, but they do go back into the hand of the Allies thanks to that Rescue Scarf. It is the Larvitar into the active spot for the Allies here. The Aerodactyl being pulled as the Rumbles have just taken the first battle point here in game 2. And that's where that Rescue Scarf comes into play, because the Larvitar is immediately back on the bench. Because if you lose a game with an active Pokemon, with an empty bench, you automatically lose the game. We've seen that happen to teams on countless occasions, and you don't want that to happen because you didn't play your Rescue Scarf. And with that tackle, it is 10 damage onto the Crustle from the Larvitar as the Hiker is pulled for the Rumbles again. They can capitalize on their 3 fighting type Pokemon in play to look at their top 3 cards, the Sudowoodo, the Crustle, the X-Speed. They can place them back in any order, going with the Sudowoodo, going with the X-Speed, going with the Crustle, back on top of their deck. Keeping in mind that Pokemon Communication can send a Pokemon in their hand back into their deck to get a different Pokemon out, another Stone Edge, they want another head flip, and they get it as well, another 150 damage. And they were guaranteed the discard of Larvitar, but this is where those 50 battle points, that 50 damage counted towards the leaderboard. That could be crucial in making the difference on where a team places as we head into Victory Road. So the Rumbles needed that as the second Pupitar is pulled for the Allies here. But this is not good here for the Allies. They can get the 10 damage off with the Larvitar. Pupitar can't go on the offensive. They're still going to bring that into play, but Pupitar only has 80 health. It cannot outlast a hit from the Stone Edge, so they're not going to be able to get that extra 20 damage. Even though it doesn't seem like much, the Rumbles, they are free to go for another Stone Edge. They want another head flip, and normally sides would just go straight for the win. The Rumbles though, they've attached an energy to the Sudowoodo. I'm not sure what they're thinking here, but here, maybe now they can see it. They need the 3rd head flip. They don't get it, but they still get their 3rd battle point, and the Cliff Cave deck has absolutely run through this Dark Light deck to take game 2 before we go into our 3rd and final game of this series. And with our final table reset, it's again the Allies that will be going first using their final deck, their Hot Foot deck. They've already got the 2 Fletchling plus the Maulol in hand, but they've got the Fletchinder and the Talonflame in hand as well. Keeping in mind this deck does produce fire and grass type energy. It is Maulol in the active spot, Fletchling on the bench for the Rumbles. Again, starting out with their Tyrogue being pulled. They've also got the Phanpy that is going to go on the bench as well. They've got their Giant Cape, the Rescue Scarf, which we have talked about already, and the Rare Candy being pulled. But here we go, Game 3, our decider between these two teams to determine who will take the overall series. It is the Will being pulled for the Holon Allies. And they are going to end their turn. They've got that second Fletchling in the hand as the Hitmontop is pulled for the Rumbles, that they don't have to worry about evolving from the Tyrogue as the baby Pokemon, sorry, they do not evolve in the PokeType League TCG. And it is that Slappy Knuckle getting 20 damage onto Maulol here. And it is the Leafeon being pulled for the Allies, and it is the Leafeon that's the reason why there are Grass type energy within this deck, because for every Grass type energy attached to the Leafeon, it does power up that Leaf Blast as the Fletchinder comes online. They're not going to get an energy here onto the Maulol. And with no energy on Maulol, they do send it back over to the Rumbles here as they do pull their second Phanpy. Phanpy with that Flail. Now, it does do 0 damage unless Phanpy has taken damage, and it does do equal to what it has taken from the opposition here. And they are going to retreat into the Phanpy. A very interesting decision with that as well. Can't help but wonder what they're thinking with the Phanpy in the active spot. They are going to attach the Giant Cape, so this will boost their health up to 90, which actually takes them out of discard range from that Talonflame, who is capable of doing 50 damage and burning the opposing Pokemon. But their attack, this Flail for the time being, will do 0. Maybe they're hoping that they can pull the Donphan. They send it back over to the Allies, who pull an Eevee. That Find a Friend Eevee doesn't actually do any damage, but they do immediately get that online, and they're starting to generate this Grass type energy as well. As we touched on, for every Grass type energy attached to the Leafeon, it does become more powerful. But instead, they're going to retreat the Maulol, moving Talonflame into the active spot. The Syrian Flame, as we said, 50 damage, and it will leave Phanpy with that burn status condition. And there will be that burn checkup that comes into play. If they flip their heads, this will cure Phanpy of the burn, but unfortunately it is the tail, so Phanpy does go for the Flail. The burn will wipe it off the board before Talonflame even has to go on the offensive again. Swinub is pulled for the Rumbles, but they are going to move their second Phanpy now onto the bench. And it receives its first energy. They were unsuccessful in pulling Donphan, but they go for the Flail, and this does get that 70 damage onto the Talonflame, bringing it down to 60 health remaining. They do go for the burn checkup, but that doesn't really matter, because even though they flip the heads, it won't stop Phanpy from being discarded from this match, and the Allies will take the first battle point over this spinning Plow deck. Rumbles need to decide who they want to move into the active spot, and they're going to sacrifice the Tyrogue here. They're going to have to work their way back in this contest as the Memory Light does get pulled for the Allies. Leafeon has come online. It does receive that first Grass energy. That Leaf Blast does just do a base 10 damage, but it does become more powerful, as we said, with every Grass type energy, and that 50 damage wiping Tyrogue clean off the board. The Allies are 1 point away from taking down another champion here in Season A4. It is going to be the Hitmontop moved into the active spot. It only needs a single energy for that piercing spin. The Mamoswine has been pulled. There's already a Rare Candy, and Swinub is moved onto the bench, but the piercing spin, 20 damage to Talonflame plus 20 damage to a benched Pokemon of the Allies, and they do target down the Maulol, bringing it down to 20 health. As the Allies, they pull their Leaf Cape, and this can boost the health of a Grass type Pokemon by 30. This actually takes Maulol out of discard range from the Hitmontop, bringing it back up to 50, and they attach a Fire type energy to the Maulol. And they continue with the Syrian Flame onto this Hitmontop that will finish it with 10 health remaining thanks to the burn. The Rumbles, they need to flip the heads and cure Hitmontop of the burn, and they are successful in doing so. Not that Hitmontop will be able to outlast another Syrian Flame. It is the second Hitmontop being pulled for the Rumbles, but it has a 2 energy retreat cost. The Rumbles needing to think about how they want to approach this. The Hitmontop taking the final bench slot. It is going to receive its first energy. There isn't much that the Rumbles can do here. I think they can feel it. They're taking their time, they are going for the piercing spin, so this will get 40 damage in total counted towards our leaderboard, but this will not be enough. Targeting down the Mauler once again, and the Talonflame and the second Leafeon being pulled. They can generate that grass energy for the Leafeon, but that means it will only be capable of doing 50 damage to the Hitmontop, which is exactly what the Talonflame can do with the Searing Flame. And now that they've double checked, they wanted to make sure they could maximize their damage. They have maximized their win as the Holon Allies with this Hotfoot deck takes the series over this spinning plow deck. And this may be the best start we have seen for the Holon Allies in PokeType League TCG, moving up to 4th place. Next round going up against the Levincia Wonders, whereas for the Rumbles next round they will be going up against the Turfield Ebonies. But until then, Nidorinos, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below what cards you pulled today, and if you enjoyed what you saw, please leave a like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, always remember, send thanks, and I'll see you when you see me.